Hey everyone and welcome to the Learning Ladder. So I got recently asked the question of what tips or tricks I'd recommend to either new homeschoolers or existing homeschoolers. And I always kind of edge with caution on making these types of videos because everybody's different. Every homeschool is different and there is no right way to do things. So I don't really like to make these types of videos, but you know, they were persistent, they asked again. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to give it a go. So I have got 10 tips to have I don't even know what I'm going to entitle this video. 10 tips for home educators. There we go. But again, take these with a grain of salt. This is just my experience. Everybody's different, and if these don't apply to you, don't worry. It doesn't mean there's a problem, but it also I'm not trying to start any controversy here. So let's just get into it. Everybody's different. That's okay. So number one, and I haven't really rated these in order, but I would say this one particularly is very important. So number one is don't compare your child to others. I see, or I have seen in just life in general, where people do that. Oh, my child walked at 5 months. My child walked at 2 months, you know, and it becomes this giant, and obviously that's completely not true, but you know what I mean? This becomes a giant competition, and it shouldn't be that way because every child is different. Some children will read by themselves. That didn't happen with us. I did have to teach my child to read, but some children do. Some children don't. Some children take a really long time to learn to read, but then take off and fly. And that's okay. Don't compare your child to another person's child. It sucks joy out of life if everything is a competition. And I know some people's personalities are like that. I am not competitive at all. I don't care if you win. I couldn't care less. But that is just my nature. I'm very easygoing. But if you're not, and you know you're really high strung or you're really competitive, just try and rein yourself back in, because it's not a competition. It's about creating a child who will thrive and who will enjoy life and will be willing to try things, and you know, without fear of, and I think oftentimes competition can create this fear of failure, so they don't even want to try. So, and again, you'll get that anyway, because children personality types can be like that. So children can want to win all the time, and you know, it's very normal. But if you as the adult try to take yourself out of the rat race, if you like, of life, you've chosen a different type of life to home educate. You've chosen a more relaxed life, I would say. You know, you're not having to get up at 7 o'clock to get on the bus to go to school. You know, you're not having to meet these specific goals or agenda impacted by society, where you know you go to your office and then you pick up your kid for 8 o'clock from the daycare, and you know you've chosen a different way of life. So embrace that change and let it flow out of you into all aspects of your life. And the biggest one is, as I said, don't compare your child to others. It's not a competition. Who cares when Johnny started to read? As long as he can read by the time he needs to be able to read, in terms of, you know, he's wanting to go out into the world, then, you know, that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that to not encourage your children to read, obviously, but it's not, they don't have to be reading by the time they're 3. They really don't. If they do, great, fantastic. But it's not a race. It's not a competition. And if it takes them until they're 6, they're 7, they're 8, they're 9, they're 10, as long as you're encouraging them and there's forward motion, to me, that's what's most important. There's progress. If you're stalled completely, then you definitely I would seek some help, just in case there's any kind of learning difficulties there. But as long as you're seeing forward progress, that, you know, in terms of my opinion, that's fine. But again, I'm not a medical professional, and if you have any doubts at all, get your child seen by a medical professional, not by another fellow homeschooler who will tell you that their child learned to read at 2, so there's something wrong with yours. You know, don't compare. Okay, moving on. Don't compare yourself to others. Again, very, very important. You will find in the home education community vast waves of different adults, different types of personalities, different types of skill sets. You'll find the really crafty mom, you'll find the mom who loves to read, you'll find the mom who loves to bake, you'll find the mom who hates all those things, who's sporty, or you know, you'll find a wide range of different types of people. as you do in life. This is no different. And I don't know why people think it is, but it's not. It's no different. You'll find really a wide range of people who home educate. But don't compare yourself. You're fine as you are. If you like to do the crafts, great. If you hate them and glue on your hands is like poison, that's absolutely fine. Don't compare yourself and try to be something you're not. Give your children options. So if you hate to craft, that doesn't mean to say you're never ever going to bring crafts into your home, but you're just not going to choose a curriculum that's extremely crafty. But that doesn't mean to say, you can't have elements or pockets of the day where you provide your child with those opportunities, because let's face it, what kid... It can happen. Some kids don't like glue on their hands, but other kids will love to paint and to draw, and you can have the time to do that, but it just doesn't have to be every single thing that you do that day. So again, don't compare yourself. If you're not the mom who loves to read aloud and you absolutely hate picking up a book, there's audiobooks. There's different ways that you can read to your children, but don't fall into the trap of comparison, because it is the ultimate thief of joy. It really is. And that's so cliche and you hear it all the time, but it's true. It is. If you stand there and compare yourself to every single other person in the world, you will find someone who is far superior and you will feel like you are on the bottom of the pile. But it's not true. Everybody has their own sets of skills. And even though you might not think you have any talents, trust me, you do. It's just very hidden, as in my case. But you will find something that you're good at. And that's absolutely fine, to be different than everybody else and to not be the artsy mum, to not be the crafty mum, the baker mum who's making their sourdough at 5 o'clock in the morning. If that's not you, that's great. It doesn't have to be. But just don't compare. Thief of joy. Remember that. Really important. So number 3, expect things to change. And this is really, really important, because kids change. They do. You'll have your child at one point in life, they'll love to, swim. A couple of years later, you ask them to go to the pool. Ooh, I don't want to do that. And you'll be like, what? But you love swimming. And I have definitely fallen into this trap of saying that, but you loved doing that. And now they're like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's completely normal. It's a normal path of life. Think about yourself. What did you like when you were younger? And then as you got older, you absolutely hated it. My daughter loved a specific food. And then if you were to give it to her now, she would look at you like you were blue with pink hair, because she hates it now. People change in all aspects of life. They change. So expect that and don't beat yourself up about it, because it'll happen. You might have had the kid who was really social or who wasn't, and then suddenly is. Or you might have the kid who loved to read, devoured books, and then the thought of picking up a book now, it doesn't interest them, and you start to panic. Oh my God, I'm a homeschooler. My kids are supposed to love to read. And it might just be that they're in a reading rut. It happens. It happens to adults. It can happen to kids. It could be that the books that, they've changed, the books that you've got are too babyish. It could be that they're too old for them. You're trying to push YA or middle grade and they're still liking picture books or chapter books. Again, that comes in the don't compare, because I think sometimes we try to push things on our children because we think that that's the level they should be at, because you see videos or whatever where kids are reading really advanced books and you think, oh, your kids should be, yeah, they're happily reading a graphic novel, but you try and push something else on them and then you really put them off reading. So as I said, don't be frightened of change. It's not a bad thing, and just navigate that with grace, I would say, because your children will change and hormones will play in at a certain point, peer pressure, so other kids that they've socialized with, and everything will change. To think that it won't is very naive, to be honest, because it will, but embrace it as a positive thing, because I think sometimes we can get into, I miss the days where they used to do this and everything else, and there's nothing wrong with that, and your emotions are valid. But it's life. Unfortunately, things do change. People grow up, and what they liked when they were younger, they might not like in the future. And there's no reflection on you. It's just what you have to expect in life. It might change for the better. So you might have the kid who hated reading, but now absolutely devours books. Or as I said, it could be a different change that you don't feel comfortable with. But everything's fleeting. They might hate one thing 1 minute, the next minute really like it. So just expect change and be okay with it. You know, you might have the kid who loved literature-based curriculums and now wants to just get the work done because they've got another interest that they're really passionate about, and you think, oh my god, I've wanted to cherish this love of reading, and now they don't want anything to do with books. And that's not true. It could just be that this other interest is really, really important to them at this moment in time. So I don't know, say they like a sport, or they like horse riding, or computer games, or whatever, and you think, oh my god, I'm gonna have this gamer who doesn't want to pick up a book and wants to, you know, sit in their room all day and play Nintendo or whatever. But you'll find that over time there might be a reason for that. There might be they wanting to get to a next level in a game or something, and then once they achieve that, then, you know, they go back to picking up their book. It's like you as an adult. Think about where you've been really passionate about something. So sometimes in the past I've been really passionate about writing, and all I wanted to do is write, and then at another point in time all I wanted to do is read. And children are no different. It doesn't mean they don't like writing anymore, that they, you know, they stopped loving books just because they want to get to the next level in their game. It's just what's more important to them at that specific time. And children are very goal or situational orientated, I find, in my experience. They can be, at least. You know, they want to achieve something, and once that's done, then, you know, other things will be open to them. Again, it's just personality type, but you just have to expect change. And if you do that, your life will be so much better. It really will be. Number 4, don't buy everything that you see online or from Instagram or from Amazon recommending stuff to you. My biggest tip is, and this has been something I've done for several years now, stick it in your cart. Add it to your cart as much as you want, but do not check out. Wait another day, 2 days, and see if you still feel as strongly about that item as you did, and then buy it. It's unlikely to have gone out of stock. Obviously, there are certain limitations on things where things can go out of stock, but I think a lot of times now we're not in that era anymore where, you know, if you didn't buy something immediately, it would be go. This is mainly for online shopping, because I don't think in person it has the same impact, because you can see your trolley and you can think, oh, actually there's too much in there, I'm not going to, you know, get all those things today. But when it's online, it has a different effect on your mind, I think, in my opinion. But just leave it for 2 days and then come back to it, and if you still really want it, then get it then. You know, it's something you really needed. But also, don't be afraid to return stuff, and I fall into that category sometimes where I don't want to go to the post office to send something back, and I'll just resell it. But utilize returns if it's something you don't need or you don't want. Don't keep stuff that is unnecessary or you could resell unless you've got tons of space. It's just my opinion. Or if you want to save it for other kids, but bearing in mind those other kids might not have that same learning style, so you might save all this stuff and then not need it anyway. But there's always reselling opportunities in homeschool, and utilize those, because you will find that parents are on different budgets and they might need those items, and, you know, if you can resell them on, that's great. So don't think that you can't do that and, you know, just throw stuff away or whatever, or donate. That's, you know, do that obviously rather than throwing things away. But if you just add everything to your cart that you see advertised by a YouTuber, by Instagram, you'll be broke really quickly and then you won't be able to buy anything. And also, you might end up with stuff you don't need, or don't want, or don't actually, can't use because it's not for your child. You know, it's not their learning style, and then those other feelings start to play into, but why did it not work for my child when it worked for, I don't know, let's think of a name, Sarah on Instagram, who I've loved for years and I've followed for years, and why do her children all like this product but mine doesn't? So you fall into that comparison trap again. So just be mindful of what you're purchasing. Stick it in your cart for 2 days. If you still want it, get it. That's just my opinion. It's your money, you do whatever you want with it, but that's just something I found has worked really well. Sales will come around again. You know, you'll see 20% off, 25% off, but they do tend to repeat throughout the year. Not always though. So there are certain times where companies will have a one-off sale and that's it for the year. But generally speaking, a lot of companies will have multiple sales throughout the year. But again, if you really want that item, 20% off is not that a massive difference. Yes, it's good and it's better than nothing, but my point is that if you miss that sale because it wasn't in your budget at that time to buy it, and then you have to pay full price, it sucks. But at least you can still get it in the future, and you haven't bought it at a time when you couldn't buy it because it's, you know, it's making you in debt or whatever. 20% is not good if it's making you in debt. So just be mindful of your spending and as again, put it in your cart and see if you really actually do want it, or if you've just got that shiny new, or oh, she said I should get that, so therefore I'm going to buy it, because sometimes you don't know whether those are genuine reviews. I wouldn't say this happens much in the homeschool community, but in life in general, people will say, oh, I like this energy drink or whatever, and then you buy it and it tastes like, I don't know, dog water. So, it's just, be mindful of people who you trust their opinions of, and be realistic with your budget. Okay, where are we up to? Number 5, be flexible with your attitude. When I say that, I don't mean that, oh, my kid woke up and doesn't want to do school today, so therefore I'm going to be flexible and we're not going to do school. I don't mean that, but I mean, everybody has bad days. Everybody wakes up with a headache. Well, not everybody, but it can happen. You can wake up and not had a good night's sleep. You can wake up feeling crabby, but then a couple of hours later, you warm up and you're okay. So be flexible. If your child is really grumpy and doesn't want to do maths first thing in the morning, maybe do it a little bit later on in the day. It could just be that they're really not a morning person, and that their brain works better after they've had some breakfast, and they're a bit more awake and they've had a chance to stretch their legs outside and everything. You have to, just because a schedule says you should do maths 9 till 10 doesn't mean that that's the right time for you to do maths with your child. Sorry, my cat is just, and this is what I mean about being flexible with your animals as well as humans. Just because a schedule says you should do something at a certain time of the day doesn't mean that that's the right time of the day to do it. But then also, it doesn't also mean that you shouldn't do it that day either. You do need to get your lessons done, but you can be flexible with your attitude to how you get those done and what time you get them done. If your teenager is really tired and needs to sleep, they're going through a huge growth change in life, let them sleep for a bit. Then, do your maths in a couple of hours. But being flexible, it doesn't mean that you don't get your work done. It just means that you're flexible with other people's feelings and emotions and schedule, and how they work best. But also, and this is the part 2 to this, if you plan something and you've spent ages planning this whole unit study and then you present it and nobody likes it, or everybody hates it, and you've not got the response that you wanted, try not to take it too personally, because it could just be that you presented it at the wrong time. Maybe people don't want to paint at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they want to paint later on in the day if your kids are younger, and you're having tantrums and everything else. Don't take it personally that you plan this amazing thing and nobody likes it. It could just be that you've presented it at the wrong time. It could just be that everyone's had a really bad day, but if you do it again in a couple of weeks, it's fine. Just try not to take things too personally. The next one is, don't overplan or be a slave to the schedule. That's really important, because it doesn't mean you're not being consistent, that you're being realistic with what you can actually achieve. Sometimes schedules can be really packed, that you're doing something constantly throughout the day, and that might not work for your child who has a really short attention span. It might not work for your child who needs to get their fidgets out. It might not work for your child who just wants to get everything done quickly and doesn't want to spend all day doing something. So don't be a slave to the schedule. If the schedule is not working, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your child. It's that actually more than likely that the schedule needs tweaking, and that's okay. Or if you don't even want to have a schedule, again, that's whatever works for you, but just be consistent. So if you do maths 3 times a week, then do math 3 times a week. You don't have to do them on a certain day, but as long as you get your maths done in that week, then that, to me, that's okay. Be flexible, but be consistent. Okay, number 7, don't become entrenched in an educational philosophy. So you'll find oftentimes when people start out, they'll be really gung-ho about a certain philosophy that they've seen. So whether it's Charlotte Mason, it's Waldorf, or something along those lines. But then when the reality hits home of they've printed out their Ambleside online schedule and they're so excited and they've gone and got all the books and everything else, and you start doing your lessons and you realize that everybody hates the books, they're too wordy, or they're over their heads, or nobody wants to read them aloud, or you'll get all your Waldorf supplies and then no one wants to use chalk, it goes all over their hands, and crayons get in their nails, and nobody wants to do the glue and everything else. And then you start to think, oh my gosh, and start to panic because you spent all this money on this educational philosophy and nobody wants to do it. And that can be really, really hard on an adult who is the educator and who has made these financial and emotional decisions based on a philosophy. So I would just say start off dipping your toe into things rather than going all out gung-ho on a specific philosophy, because what you might have in your head and or envisage what you want your homeschool to be like can be completely different to what your child actually learns best with. They might love books, they might love the literature approach, but they might not like the Charlotte Mason approach in terms of they don't like, certain books that are part of the text that are required in the schedule and everything else, but they do like books. It doesn't mean to say you can't be Charlotte Mason in your approach, but it just might mean that you can't follow the Ambleside online curriculum, and you might have to tailor things, and that's okay. You haven't failed, and it doesn't mean that your children can't reap the benefits of an educational philosophy. You don't have to be all one thing. You don't have to box yourself in, and that's the great thing about homeschooling. You can be flexible. You can have a bit of both. You can have, okay, well, my kids really love books, but not maybe some of these books that are on this list, but they like these other books, so we'll incorporate those. And yeah, my kids love to draw, they love art, but they don't really like to make all the beautiful pages and everything else. They just want to draw what they want to draw, or they want they want to be inspired by nature or whatever. So we'll take those bits of Waldorf that we like, but we won't spend hours making our lesson plan book and everything, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be all of one or nothing. It can be a mix. It can be that it works out for you, and sometimes it does, but just be flexible, as we said before, and expect change, because just because your child loves to draw now doesn't mean that they will do in 5 years' time. If you spent all this money on this philosophy, it's going to be really difficult for you to financially drift with the change and the flow, and also you won't want to because you've become entrenched in this lifestyle and posting the Instagram pic of all these Waldorf supplies and everything else. It's not about what everybody else thinks or sees about your homeschool that makes it good. It's about your child's experience, and they're the only person who can judge you, nobody else. So don't be bothered about posting these fancy pictures and feel like you're a failure if you don't, because ultimately at the end of the day, your child is the person you have to answer to, nobody online. And it's not a competition, it's about what's best for your child. And I think sometimes we can fall into that rut of comparison and also trying to compete and everything else, and it's just not worth it, because ultimately your child is the only person who matters in life. It doesn't matter whether or not you posted this amazing picture on Instagram that had people commenting about how wonderful your homeschool was. Who cares what they think? If your child is miserable, that's what's important. Not what everybody else thinks, is what your child thinks. And you have to be realistic with your expectations, and remember who you're teaching. You're not teaching Instagram, you're not teaching Facebook, you're not teaching the homeschool groups that you go to. You're teaching your child, and that's what you've got to rein yourself back in. And I'm not saying that you're a bad person if that happens to you. I think it happens to the best of us, but just bring yourself back to earth and think about who you're teaching. And it doesn't matter if your homeschool isn't all bright and colourful with all these Waldorf supplies. As long as your child is happy and is thriving, that's what's most important. Not whether they're doing a Waldorf education or a Charlotte Mason education. You're teaching your own individual child. That's what's most important. And the philosophy can change, and that's okay. And you can have a bit of everything, and that's okay. And if you don't want to do any philosophy at all and you just want to do workbooks, if your child is enjoying themselves and learning that way, great. It doesn't have to be this beautiful aesthetic image at all to be successful. Okay, where are we up to? Number 8, be respectful to others' choices. So again, you might, how can I put this without, okay, so you might be really into your philosophy of education, and that's fine, but don't expect someone else to agree with you and don't take it personally if they don't, and try not to let yourself be impacted or change how you want to do things based on someone else's opinion. If it's working, great. If it's not, then obviously you need to address that. But I think sometimes people, again, fall into that whole comparison thing and, oh, well, she said we should do this, or he said we should do that, so therefore we have to do what they've said, or otherwise we're failing as a home educator if we don't read tons of books, if we don't do, all the crafts, if we don't bake, and, we don't do all these trips and everything else, we're failing. Not true. If your child is thriving and happy, that's your measure. That's how you know you're succeeding in what you're doing. And are they always going to be happy every single day with every single aspect? And woohoo, we're doing maths today. No, because they're children. They're a human. Do you want to sit and do fractions every single day? Do you want to sit and do algebra when it's hard and you're really struggling and you're having to really concentrate? Or would you rather go and watch some TV or read a book? So be realistic about what you're basing your child's happiness onto. So no, they're not going to come running to the table to do a page of fractions and percents and decimals with joy and passion. No, that's not going to happen. It might do if they particularly love maths, but if they don't and it's a struggle and they're really struggling to learn this new concept, they might not come to the table willingly at all. It might just be, oh, really, maths again? And then you start to think, oh my God, I'm failing as a home educator. They hate maths. Not true. You will often find it's where that attitude is where they're reaching a big leap, like when they were babies and they did fussy and didn't sleep for a bit, because then you suddenly see, oh my God, they've started to walk, or they're crawling, or they're pushing up, or whatever. Same in education. You might find that leap is just about to come. So where they get it, that light bulb moment, and it's the most amazing experience when your child has that light bulb moment in homeschool, because you can see the fruits of your labor, if you like. But sometimes that light bulb moment takes a while to get there, and then you start to panic and think, I'm not doing enough, and what's wrong, and everything else. And it could just be you need to sit down with them. I'd always say sit down with your child and ask them what the problem is. It could be that they don't want to admit that they're struggling because they don't want to feel like a failure, or they don't want to, feel like they're behind or whatever. But it could just be that they need a bit of extra help and support, presenting the idea or concept in a different way. So whether you've done it in books, maybe they need to watch a video. Oftentimes that's really helpful, especially if they're a visual child. They can see, the bits of, if it's maths, for example, oftentimes with videos you'll see the manipulatives moving around and everything, and that can really help. If you can't afford to go and buy tons of manipulatives, you just use something you've got at home to help them to see things in a different way. It can just mean that you just need a bit more extra time or patience with them to get this concept. Just going back to what the actual point was, be respectful to other people's choices. You don't have to agree with them, and that's okay. I think healthy discussion and debate is good. I don't think we should shy away from different opinions. Your attitude and how you respond to people, just think about how you'd want someone to respond to you. And we don't stand there stamping our feet because things don't go our way. We can be respectful to other people and their choices, even if it's not something that we're okay with, because we don't have to do that. That's okay. You don't have to spout, your opinion to make yourself a soundboard for this negative thing. You might feel that you need to do that, but you don't have to. You can just be happy and comfortable in what you believe, and you don't have to shout that at another person. Just be respectful. Okay, number 9, shop secondhand. And I know sometimes there can be a stigma with this because you feel like you should provide everything shiny and new, and yep, if you can afford to do that, go ahead. But also think about how long you're going to use that item for and everything else. And oftentimes it can be better to buy secondhand. Not only will you save money, but it gives things a home again, keeps it out of landfill and everything else. And you can find really good bargains shopping secondhand. It's not always easy depending on where you live. So again, don't feel bad if you can't do that, because I know we've lived in places where finding educational things secondhand is really difficult, and the only place you can find them is online. And even then, it doesn't always make financial sense because oftentimes it's similar price. So don't beat yourself up if you can't shop secondhand, or if you don't want to, but just remember that is an option. And you will often find, particularly if you live in areas where there are lots of home educators, good things secondhand. Number 10, last thing, remember to have some fun. And I'm not saying that every day has to be, you jumping out of a cake and balloons everywhere. Yay, we're homeschooling, it's day 3. It doesn't have to be like that. But if you want it to be like that, go ahead. But I'm just saying, think about how you can inject some fun. So we're really struggling with maths. It's a crappy lesson. We're really struggling with language arts. Nobody wants to listen. Think about how you can present something in a different way to inject some fun. It could be something simple as you go and bake some cookies. Who doesn't love cookies? We bring the cookies to the table when we're talking about our maths. Are we munching on our cookies? We don't even have to go into fractions with the cookies unless we really wanted to. But we're having a bit of a snack, and that sugar, endorphins and everything else makes maths go much smoother. I'm not saying do that all the time, because again, teeth and obesity and everything else, but little bits of fun make all the difference. You give your child a bookmark that you've handmade, or you've just draw a picture of a character that they like on a piece of paper. Here's your bookmark. Well done for doing a good job. It doesn't have to be this elaborate thing where you get a treat and you have this store. We've done that and it's fun. Coupons for store items if they've had a good piece of work or they've tried hard under pressure or whatever. They're struggling with something, you give them a coupon and they go and get something from the store. We've done that before. Really good. But you don't have to do that. It can be something small. It can be a field trip, and I often think field trips are underestimated with how much you can actually gain from them. And some people think, oh, you're taking the day off to go and do a field trip, but it's amazing how much you can learn from a field trip, and you can get in your skills that way too. Don't be afraid to put the books away for the day and go for a field trip, but obviously just don't do it every single day, because then you'll never get any of your other stuff done. But you can inject fun in different ways. Okay, your budget's not for field trips. Watch some stuff online. There's lots of virtual field trips that you can watch nowadays. Again, it's just a change. We really love doing the snack boxes from different countries, and make your own snack box. Go and get one from somewhere online. Just inject a little bit of fun, occasionally. As often as you want to do it, or as often as you can do it, will be best. But even just going to school yourself with a positive attitude can make the difference. You've been up all night with babies or whatever, you're tired, you've got loads of chores to do, so you're concentrating on thinking about what your to-do list is, as opposed to, okay, we've got to do homeschool. And it can be difficult to come with a positive attitude, but it's amazing how much that can change someone else who's feeling really negative when they see someone else positive. And it can also have the bad effect as well, because your child just may not want anything to do with this positive upbeat attitude. But over time, it's hard to kind of be negative completely when your mum's dressed up and I don't know, put some costume on or whatever, and it's really trying, they'll crack a smile eventually. It's hard to resist someone who is trying to be joyful, unless your child is extremely set in this mood, which if they are, then there's nothing else you can do until they come out of it themselves. But just inject some fun where you can, and remember, it's not a race, it's a journey. And your path will go all over the place, and that's okay. Just remember, it's a journey, and you will have your twists and turns along the way. But just remember why you're doing this in the first place, and just speak to your child often and communicate about what they want, what they need, and you will succeed. So that's everything I have today, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye for now.